This presentation is for Chapter 7, Master Budgets. In Learning Objective 6, we will prepare a financial budget for a merchandising company. We are going to continue the budgeting process for Greg's Games by preparing the capital expenditures, cash, and budgeted financial statements, including the budgeted income statement and budgeted balance sheet. The primary source of cash is from customers. The sales budget that we prepared previously showed the total sales for the period. If you recall, the company's sales are 60% cash and 40% on credit. The 40% credit sales are collected the month after the sale is made. This exhibit shows the April budgeted cash collections consist of two parts. April cash sales from the sales budget are equal to $30,000, and then they have the collection of March's credit sales of $16,000 that were shown as accounts receivable on the March 31st balance sheet. The process is repeated for all 4 months. At the end of July, there would be a $14,700 accounts receivable balance that would be shown on the budgeted balance sheet. Greg's Games pays for merchandise inventory purchases 50% during the month of purchase and 50% the month after. We use the inventory purchases and cost of goods sold budget to compute budgeted cash payments for purchases of inventory. April's cash payments for purchases consist of two parts. Payment of 50% of March's purchases that were shown as $16,800 in accounts payable balance on the March 31st balance sheet and 50% of the April purchases. The process would continue for the remaining months. At the end of July, accounts payable would have a balance of $14,700 that would be shown on the budgeted balance sheet. This schedule shows the cash payments for selling and administrative expense. Greg's Games pays half of the salaries and commissions in the month incurred and half in the following month. Therefore, at the end of each month, Greg's Games reports salaries and commissions payable equal to half the month's payments. The $4,250 balance in salaries and commissions payable in the March 31st balance sheet is half the March payment of $8,500. The company's selling and administrative expenses also included $2,000 rent, $500 depreciation, and $200 of insurance expense, and miscellaneous expense of 5% of sales for the month. Greg's Games pays all of these expenses in the month incurred, except for insurance and depreciation. I don't know if you will recall, but insurance was prepaid insurance, so the cash payment for the insurance was made before this budget period. Therefore, no cash payment is shown for insurance during April through July. Depreciation is a non-cash expense, so it is not included in the budgeted cash payments for selling and administrative expense. There would be a $5,000 salaries and commissions payable balance at the end of July that would be shown in the budgeted balance sheet. Greg's Games requires a minimum cash balance of $10,000 at the end of each month. The store can borrow cash in $1,000 increments at an annual interest rate of 12%. Management borrows no more than the amount needed to maintain the $10,000 minimum ending cash balance. Total interest expense will vary as the amount of borrowing varies from month to month. Notes payable require $1,000 installment payments of principal per month, plus the monthly interest on the unpaid principal balance. This is an installment loan. Therefore, payments of principal are $1,000 per month, even if there is no additional excess cash on hand. Borrowing and all principal and interest payments occur at the end of the month. On this slide, we have the completed cash budget for April. As we can see at the top, it begins with the beginning cash balance from the March 31st balance sheet. We add to that the cash receipts that we calculated on the cash receipt schedule of $46,000 to get total cash available of $62,400. Under cash payments, we can see a cash expenditure for capital expenditures of $3,000 that would only have occurred in April per the cash expenditures budget. Then we see the purchases that we calculated for merchandise inventory of $42,700 and the selling and administrative expenses for April of $13,750. We add those together and we get $59,450 in total cash payments, which we would subtract from cash available of $62,400 to get the ending cash balance before financing for April of $2,950. We subtract the minimum cash balance that management desires of $10,000 and we see we have a projected cash deficit of $7,050 for April. This slide shows the completed cash budget for Greg's Games. We can see that management borrowed $8,000 in April to maintain the minimum cash balance desired of $10,000. The ending cash balance after the borrowing was $10,950, which becomes the beginning balance for cash for May. In May, the company would have to pay interest expense of $80, which would be calculated at 1% times the unpaid principal balance of $8,000. The total cash payments would be subtracted from cash available, and we can see that Greg's Games has a projected ending cash balance before financing for May of $12,320 and a projected cash excess of $2,320, and they make a principal repayment of $1,000. At the end of May, the ending cash balance was $11,320, and again it becomes the beginning cash balance for June. In June, we have interest payments of $70 calculated as 1% of the unpaid principal balance on the note of $7,000. The projected cash excess in June was $10,650, and after subtracting a $1,000 principal payment, the ending cash balance for June was $19,650. In July, there was interest again of $60 that was calculated at 1% of the $6,000 unpaid principal balance, and July had a projected cash excess also of $15,440, and a $1,000 principal repayment was made. At the end of July, the ending cash balance was shown as $24,440, and that would be the cash balance on the July 31st budgeted balance sheet. On this slide, we see the sources for the budgeted income statement. The sales revenue, cost of goods sold, and selling and administrative expenses would come directly from the budgets that were completed. The interest expense would come from the cash budget. This slide shows the completed budgeted income statement for Greg's Games. At the end of the period, it is projected that Greg's Games would have a net income of $2,990. This slide shows the sources of information to complete the budgeted balance sheet. This information would either come from the budgets that we completed, or it would come from information from the March 31st balance sheet. This slide shows the completed budgeted balance sheet for Greg's Games for July 31st, 2026, and that is the completion of the presentation for Learning Objective 6.